Welcome back to Cocktails and Classics. This week, it's another dad chat. Just two dads drinking and watching, talk about movies your dad's probably seen. I think that's close enough to what it was last time.
Yeah, it's in the ballpark.
It's Ben and I again. And if you don't know why it's a dad chat, Ben is a recent father, and my wife and I are currently pregnant. So, dad chat, you know?
Woo!
This week, we took a look at In the Heat of the Night, a 1967 crime drama film to kick things off and get everybody in the right mood. Ben is going to take over on the cocktail again. You want to?
Yeah, that's fine.
You found this one.
This cocktail is literally called the Sidney Poitier, named after the star of In the Heat of the Night. It's an ounce and a half of bourbon. The recipe I found called for Maker's Mark. I just used, I think it was like Jim Beam aged black. 3/4 of an ounce of sweet vermouth, and then 2 dashes of chocolate bitters. Throw that in a shaker with some ice, shake it up, pour it into a chilled martini glass. Note to self: read the read the instructions. Give it like 20-30 minutes before you're gonna make the cocktail, and that way, if it says chill a glass, you can kind of pop one in the freezer and get it chilled a little bit. I had mine in there for all of 2 or 3 minutes, and it was nice and chilly at first, and then in about 2 seconds, it got back to room temp.
I think another thing you could do to chill a glass somewhat quickly is you put ice in the actual glass as well.
Yeah, I know that's a thing to do.
It was game time.
Yeah, it's game time decision. Pop quiz hot shot. After that, go ahead and garnish it with a cherry if you've got it. I didn't have cherries. I also don't really like cherry, so I skipped that part. It's good. It's very alcohol forward with a little bit on the back end of some chocolate. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it.
If you want to make a Sidney Poitier, you can check the show notes below. Hit up the Drizzly and Casker links to get yourself some of that bourbon or the sweet vermouth or the chocolate bitters. I'm sure there'll all be links down there below. You can check out In the Heat of the Night nowhere as of recording. It just left HBO Max, so you may have to seek it by other means. In the Heat of the Night is a 1967 crime drama thriller mystery. Currently sits at a 7.9 out of 10 on IMDb. It's the story of a black Philadelphia police detective who is mistakenly suspected of a local murder while passing through a racially hostile Mississippi town, and after being cleared, is reluctantly asked by the police chief to investigate the case. Directed by Norman Jewison, written by Sterling Silliphant, and based on the novel by John Ball, stars Sidney Poitier, Rod Steiger, Warren Oates. It won 5 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Actor for Rod Steiger, Best Writing, Screenplay based on material from another medium, Best Sound, Best Film Editing, and was nominated for Best Director, Best Effects, Sound Effects. I had never seen this film. Had you been?
I had not. I feel like we talked about several movies that were released in 1967.
And it came up.
And every time it's like, oh, what won that year? Oh, In the Heat of the Night. Like, that must be a pretty good movie if it won the Oscar. So I've wanted to watch it, and that's why you suggested it last week when I was gone, and I was vehemently like, no, I want to see that goddamn movie. No. Wait. You wait till I'm back. Yeah, I was excited to see this one. I don't know why, but I remember the quote for... I want to say it was a Simpsons reference at some point where they said something along the lines of, call me Mr. Tibbs. And that stuck out to me. So as soon as I realized this was the movie that quote was from, that they made the joke about, I was like, I need to watch it.
It's interesting to me that it wasn't Sidney Poitier that won the Best Actor. Like, he wasn't the nominee for Best Actor in a Leading Role. I mean, maybe it has something to do with... Because he ended up winning an Oscar in his lifetime, I believe, correct? Or no?
I believe so.
Let's see. He won one Oscar for Lilies of the Field. He was nominated for The Defiant Ones. He was the first African American to be nominated for Best Actor. He became the first actor to win it in Lilies of the Field, and he won an honorary award in 2002.
Okay.
Wow, he was the first African American to win Best Actor, and the only one until Denzel Washington for Training Day in 2001.
Wow.
So a 38-year gap.
Like, you had Sidney Poitier going from, like, the 60s and in the 70s, because, I mean, they did several of the Virgil Tibbs movies. But after that, I mean, realistically, up until, like, the 1990s, where you started to get, I mean, several. You've got Denzel, Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, Spike Lee was doing movies that he was also starring in, but directing. But I can't think of anyone really major through the 80s that was like a leading man.
That was like big.
Yeah, that was like a star.
I mean that's part of the thing of like the whole movement of like Oscars so white and stuff is that
Oh, yeah.
there wasn't really black stories told like from a black point of view, especially until I'd say somewhat lately. I mean, so I'm looking at this list of best actors in a leading role. You have Sidney Poitier for 58 and 63. James Earl Jones in 1970 with The Great White Hope.
Okay, yeah. I guess I always forget James, because I normally think of him just normally as a voiceover.
As Darth Vader.
Well, I think of him for voiceover, and then I think of him more so for theater, because I think of him like in Fences and winning the Tony and that there, more so than I do think of him as a movie actor.
The other one I was going to say, who did make this list, so you have Paul Winfield, Dexter Gordon. I was going to say Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
She was nominated for Driving Miss Daisy.
Yeah.
And then it's Denzel for Malcolm X, Lawrence Fishburne, Morgan Freeman for Shawshank, Denzel, Will Smith, Jamie Foxx, Don Cheadle, Terrence Howard, Forrest Whitaker, Daniel Kaluuya. I'm gonna butcher his name, but Chiwetel Ejiofor. He's the first black British actor to be nominated for Best Actor. And then you have Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
So I mean, honestly, there's only 10 maybe all time.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's true. You look at what Hollywood was in the really through the 70s and 80s, and yeah, I mean, there weren't really a lot of black stories being told, and most of your leading men were the same group of white guys, right?
Yeah, it was very interesting. I don't know. Going in, I didn't really know much about it. Like I had seen like, scenes. I knew of the there's like the scene when they go to the like the other rich guy in town. I forget his last name. The guy that like hated the dude who died, and he like he slaps
Endicott or whatever.
Endicott, and he slaps Tibbs, and then Tibbs slaps him back, and he's like, you're not gonna do anything about that, like, and if this was another time, I would have you shot. It's like, damn, dude, like, what the. I think, is that not like the first time on screen like a black man struck a white man or something? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, well, here's the other thing. I guess I was reading about this in kind of like one of the trivia sections, and one of the things was that I guess Sidney Poitier, like that. Him slapping Endicott was not in the original script or the novel, but Poitier insisted that Tibbs slap Endicott back, and then he made them guarantee that scene would appear in all cuts.
Wow, damn.
So like they couldn't just in the South release a different cut that didn't have that in it. Like it was in the movie, and it's in the movie everywhere it plays. I thought it was interesting that they kind of refused to film it in the South. They filmed it in Illinois. A lot of it also in a town called Sparta, so that they didn't have to worry about changing anything.
It's also a tidbit which is interesting that you don't really think about much anymore, that this was the first major Hollywood film in color that was lit with proper consideration for an actor with dark skin. It says Haskell Wexler recognized that the standard lighting used in filming produced too much glare on most black actors and others of dark complexion. He toned down the lighting to feature Sidney Poitier with better results. something you don't really think about.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to bring up in regards to the cinematography was the final shot of the film was the most mind-blowing shot I've ever seen in my life. It starts up as a close-up of him on the train, and then you get this weird, like, jittery effect, and you're like, oh, weird, as they zoom out, and you're like, oh, okay, they're just driving next to this train. And then it keeps zooming out and moving further and further back, and you're like, oh shit, they're in a helicopter. It's like that the shot in Dirty Harry where Zach was like, what the hell? How did they do that? And it's like, well, yeah, they were on a helicopter and somebody was operating that and had like a fucking tight shot in the train somehow. My mind was blown. I was like, oh
Yeah. No, that was. I think there was a lot of stuff that this movie. I was shocked. I was a little concerned. I'm always a little concerned about mystery type movies from like the late 60s. I mean, really like 1970 and earlier. Just because a lot of the times it feels like they can be very played out, and especially, in a world now where it's probably been retold in some form or fashion. But this one was really, I was impressed that this one, I did not see it coming until like everything was unfolding. They kind of kept you invested in it and not just like, oh, here's this really obvious thing.
When it was coming down to the wire, I had my two suspects, my two perps.
Yeah.
There was I thought when they were started to talk about like the abortion and stuff, I thought it was Colbert's wife for a second because I was like, oh, like there's the abortion clinic and like maybe he like knocked up some like the underage
16.
girl.
Yeah, which finish your
naked.
thought and then we'll go back to that. We'll go back to that.
I thought maybe it was her because she was like getting vengeance, and then there was the one scene at the diner late. It's got to be this guy, right? Like, I don't know how he would have done it based on time in relation to Wood leaving the thing, but
Yeah.
I was like, it's got to be this
Yeah.
guy because he's giving me sketchy vibes.
Well, kind of when you first see him, he kind of seems like a little odd, but it is one of those things where it's almost like a Scooby-Doo type thing where there's one other person you meet in this story. It's got to be this guy, but yeah, I was thinking honestly either the wife or like the wife's attorney, whoever the bald guy was with glasses that you see with her. Was that not? I could have sworn that.
when are you talking about?
Maybe I'm out of my mind. You see, there's a point where it's like her, and then there's this guy there. It's this guy with her in bald guy with glasses. I thought it was some sort of relation to her, but like an attorney or something. But maybe not. Maybe I missed something because I had a baby crying.
Going back to our previous thoughts. The
underage girl who you like
flaunts in
5
the
minutes
window.
into the movie, you're seeing, which I will say, people who are listening to this podcast, if you've ever read the graphic novel The Watchmen, throughout like the first half of The Watchmen, so one of the characters, Dr. Manhattan, is like just basically this guy who's blue, and he's naked like the entire book, pretty much. And throughout like the first half to maybe 5/8 of the book, there's always like conveniently something there to block his genitals from being shown.
Yeah, it's like in the Simpsons movie when Bart's like clothes come off, and then it's like something's always blocking it as he's like flying through the air. Yeah.
Yeah. It was one of those where it's like, well, I'll give you credit. You did a good job of blocking it so that you never see anything. Because it's creepy enough when you first see the cop ogling this,
Woman in the window?
woman in the window. And then at the end of the movie when it's like, she's 16. Not only do you feel even more grossed out by the cop, but you feel kind of grossed out yourself because you're like, oh, we saw that.
Yeah, but also, like, I will say she's doing it on purpose, but, like, it's just weird.
Yeah. Weird choice. Weird choice. Not the biggest fan of that one.
But I was pleasantly surprised with this movie, not gonna lie. I think it could have used, in my opinion, a little more detective work. Cause like on the surface, it is a detective movie, but it's so much more about like this town and like the racism in it. Um,
Yeah. Well,
half the
what's weird
movie,
is I feel like a lot of the detective work is done by Tibbs
yeah,
just off screen, and then it's later talked about, where
yeah,
he's like, no, here's this box of evidence, and this is like the report I have from what I found out from the body. It's like, okay, cool, cool. We're not going to talk about that anymore, and now we're going to go into this other thing. Then Tibbs is like, no, 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 this all makes sense. Wait, what? When did you have time to solve this?
honestly, he does what he does that like investigation. People are racist to him, and the thing they're like, what is he doing here? As he's trying to do the autopsy, does the autopsy, has the box. There's no like deduction really on his part, besides like the end where the guy comes out of the shadows and he's like, "Oh shit, it's that guy," and then he's like, "Check her wallet. She's gonna have $100, and because she's getting an abortion with this guy." And then like has they have that moment. And that's really like the biggest deduction part. Like everything is like either he does it in his mind or like because he's like sitting there thinking he's like, I was thinking that this person did it for personal reasons, but I think I'm wrong.
I like which was interesting enough that Scott Wilson, who is Herschel on The Walking Dead for a couple years, I didn't realize he's the guy that they lock up in the beginning that shares the cell with Tibbs for a little bit. Yeah, I didn't put that together. Yeah, so I thought it was interesting, like when he, uses some charm in that to try to figure out he gave her money for the abortion and this and that, and so it was like, oh, where would someone go for that? And well, they're not going to tell you. Well, let me tell them I'm with you, or I can help get you out, yada yada yada. Okay, well here's where you go to, go talk to this guy and he'll take you wherever. So I mean, he did do a little bit of legwork there in trying to figure out. He didn't have to do a lot of deduction, but he did do a lot of the legwork of like, let me follow this lead and see where it goes, and let me go to here and ask questions and try to figure out what's going on. So, I mean, he did some good detectiving.
I would love to know how much of the stuff he lists off that he actually got when he goes into the autopsy. He's like,
Oh,
"Oh,
I
I
half
need it,"
expected the line to be like, we don't have that.
because he's like, "We need sodium benzenate. We need this. We need scalpels. We need." I was like, "Damn, you think this little dinky town has
Toothpicks.
this?"
Toothpicks was the weird one to me.
I mean, maybe he just used that to like scrape under the fingernail like
Tooth
he did.
Toothpicks.
So I'm kind of hard pressed to think of another one that I've watched personally that has like the sort of the odd dynamic that these two have. Like, obviously there's like a detective movie that's kind of like, oh, it's like the old veteran and the newbie, and he's like,
Oh
nah,
yeah,
they
I
don't
mean,
get along. Like,
lethal weapon. Let's go.
yeah, like that dynamic, like Seven even, like
Yeah,
they don't get along. That's obviously like a huge thing in detective movies is that the two working on the case don't get along. But this one was like
but
so much
normally it's not as
further.
racially driven.
Yeah,
Normally it's like, oh, he's black and he's white, but they don't get along. Not because of race. They're just totally different ages. Like,
yeah.
it's always more so that. No, I think this movie did such a good job of kind of tackle it. Not like it solved racism, but it tackled the topic of it so well while also being a good mystery movie.
Yeah.
Like it didn't beat it over your head. Yeah, but the interactions that Tibbs has with people, the difficulty he has doing his job because of his race feels real. It doesn't feel like something where it's like, oh, 20 minutes into the movie and now everyone's just like, oh, we like this guy. He's great. We solved racism in this small town. It's like, no, everyone still second guesses everything he does because he's black. No one wants him to talk to any suspects because he's black. The chief doesn't need him anymore because he found the suspect, and now that he's telling him he's wrong. Well, what do you know? It's probably racially charged. I mean, it's there, and it doesn't beat you over the head with it. Like, it's not like every other word is about the fact that he's black. It's just more so played out in the actions, which is done well.
Yeah, I was gonna say even the chief is like hardly accepting of him. Like the only time you're really like, oh yeah, they're kind of cool is like towards the end or when they're, I mean, even when they're drinking alcohol and they have that like kind of like come together moment. Like he's like, oh, like I've never been as lonely as you. He's like, hey, whoa, I don't need your fucking pity, dude. Like, come on. Like they never
Yeah, I
typically
don't
get
think
along
they.
until the very end, where it's
Yeah,
kind of
I
like
don't.
we solved it. Good job.
Yeah, I don't think they. Which is interesting because normally you get to the end of those, and I mean, not as much in seven, even though they do become closer. But like Lethal Weapon, all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the end of the movie, we're not just close, you're like part of the family. And in this one, it's just like, hey, we still don't like each other, but we did a good job, and we'll never see each other again. So thanks for your help, and get the fuck out.
I don't know. It is interesting. I'm kind of glad it didn't have like a big fat bow on it. Obviously, I mean, hell, the one dude even fucking died. The brother,
Yeah,
like, he
yeah.
just got murked. It's like, okay,
Life
cool.
is messy. There's the takeaway from this movie.
Movie tackles a lot. Like it even tackles not necessarily capitalism, but like that's the whole like initial reason people thought that Colbert Colbert was murdered was that like, oh, he's bringing a factory to our town because we need some type of industry to like boost us, and he's going to employ both blacks and whites, and uh, and that's why we think he's going to get murdered, or the reason why he was murdered. And then it turns out no, he was just got murdered because the guy wanted his wallet. He wanted like 600
Yep.
bucks.
Yep. Just a robbery gone wrong.
Yeah, it wasn't even like he's like I didn't mean to murder him. I just wanted to bonk him over the head. And when he woke up, say we were
Yeah.
assaulted.
Oh man, we were jumped from behind. You and I both.
Oh,
I
weird.
didn't
How come
mean
you
to
don't have a
then.
giant bump on the back of
Yeah.
your head?
He didn't think that far. Give the guy a break. He probably only has like a middle school education.
Yeah, I was kind of confused at the beginning when he was like, "Where's that pie you got?" And the pie was just sitting on the counter, but like over to the side. It's like,
Yeah.
how did you not notice the pie?
Yeah. Also, the fly crawling around like inside the pie dish. Did you notice that?
God.
He killed the
Well,
one fly, and then he opens up the pie dish, and there's like another fly in there. I was like, oh
the other one
god.
was when he goes to the lady who's running the abortion clinic, and there's like a
Oh,
moth
all
or
of the
something
fly
that
strips.
lands
Oh
on her.
yes. Oh my god, it just lands on her and starts crawling.
Yeah, it was
I
like,
give that lady props that she did not like react at all during the scene to that. She's just like, yeah, okay, what's next? We'll keep going.
I always like
Props.
I get so bugged out when like in a
Ha
movie or something there's like a
ha.
fly on
Nice.
someone's face. Oh
Nice.
yeah,
Good
cool,
pun.
thanks. Um,
Good. That's a dad chat joke right there. I get bugged out. No, whenever there's bugs or something crawling on someone, oh yeah, no, it's uncomfortable.
it's always like, ugh. Because it's like they're in the scene and shit, so that they don't even like get freaked out. I'm just like watching. I can't think. There's something I've watched pretty recently where someone had like a fly, like a fly on their face, like crawling
Yeah, and it
mid
crawl.
scene, and
I
I'm like,
can't remember what it is, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, they just don't react. It's like, oh,
how?
how are you immune to this?
Not many things have like directly like drawn inspiration from this, but I feel like there is a lot of things that people have like borrowed.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know how many like buddy cop movies were around kind of before this, right? Because I feel like this was kind of like the first. I don't want to say like the first, but it just seems pretty early on for like a buddy cop movie.
Like it's interesting because I feel like they kind of it's not necessarily like he gets a full redemption, but I feel like they kind of try to be like Look, Chief Gillespie is not such a bad guy at the end. And it's like, well, he was kind of a racist prick for the whole
Yeah,
first
he's
80%
not a
of the
bad.
movie.
I will say it does feel like one of those things where like he's not a bad guy. He just doesn't really know any black people outside of that one family. Also, he's still pretty much a racist piece of shit.
Yeah.
They Call Me Mr. Tibbs was voted as the number 16 movie quote by the American Film Institute.
Wow. That's actually kind of impressive. Well, number one's exactly what I was about to say.
Is it I Am Your Father?
Nope. Keep guessing. I think more iconic than that.
I'm trying to think of iconic.
Play along at home if you would like. The number one
I feel like there's
most
so many I
iconic.
could think of. Like, You Come to Me on the Day of My Daughter's Wedding. Say Hello to My Little Friend.
I'm gonna say
I'm Batman.
So you were close with the Day of My Daughter's Wedding. That one is number two, but it's I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Can't refuse. Okay.
That's number two. Number one is Frankly, My Dear, I Don't Give a Damn.
I don't give. That makes sense. Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say when you were like, "Oh, it's number 16." I was like, "What's number one?" Frankly, My Dear, I don't give it. And then it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Number three is You Don't Understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. Could have been somebody instead of a bum, which is what I am from On the Waterfront.
Yeah, which is props to Marlon Brando.
Could you guess the rest of the top 10? That's what I would be interested in.
May the Force be with you.
Number 8.
Let's go. I probably could give you quotes if I knew movies, but I also feel like that's sometimes just a complete gimme. Oh my god. Okay, give me like maybe like an actor in the movie, so that way it's not as obvious, but that way I would have some sort of just because I mean Jesus Christ, there's so
I could
many.
give you years if I'll give you a year of a movie.
That would work.
To start,
I feel like
and then
there's
I can break
got to
it
be
down.
one of all the gin joints in all the world. She had to walk into mine, or it might be Played Again, Sam.
Same movie.
Here's looking at you, kid.
Yeah. Yes, that's number 5.
Okay.
Number 4 is from 1939.
Okay. Is it from The Wizard of Oz? Is it we're not in Kansas anymore?
Yep. Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas
We're not
anymore.
in Kansas anymore.
Number 6 will be interesting. It's from 1983. I don't think I've ever seen the movie, but I know the quote. Clint Eastwood is the lead.
Okay. Is this one of the Harry Callahan movies?
Yes.
Oh my god. Is it Go On, Make My Day?
Yep. Go ahead. Make My Days. Number 6.
Okay.
Number 7 is from 1950. You may not have seen this film. The line is by, I believe it's by Norma Desmond, is the actress.
That does not. That does not help me.
I could give you the movie.
What's the movie?
Sunset Boulevard.
I know it's right there. It's gonna bother me that I can't think of it.
All right, Mr. DeMille. I'm ready for my close-up.
Yep. I feel like that's one that every time we get to the end of an episode, we're like, what are we going to do next? It comes up as something we're going to watch, and then we never do it.
It's a pretty good one. You said number 8. May the Force be with you from Star Wars. Number 9 is also from the 1950s. All About Eve is the movie. This one I feel like is quoted a lot. I've also never seen this one.
Is this Marilyn Monroe?
No, sorry, it's Betty Davis.
Ah, okay. Man, I didn't think these would be as hard as they are.
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Bumpy ride. Oh, bumpy night. Oh.
Number 10, 1976.
1976.
Think of iconic lines. We've done the movie on the podcast.
Is it The Shining? Is it Here's
No.
Johnny?
Nope,
Oh.
that's 80s.
76 movie. I feel like we've done a shit ton of movies from 76, haven't we?
Maybe a couple at least.
Because isn't it the 77 Oscars year that we're always like, holy shit, how many
There's
movies?
so many bangers. Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
Adrian?
No, it's not.
Adrian!
It's spoken by Robert De Niro.
Oh, you talking to me?
Yeah. Yep.
Like I said, there's so many. Because I think Taxi Driver, Rocky, All the President's Men, I think, also came out in 76.
Yeah. Like I feel like there's definitely. I don't know. I feel like if we ever had something like this again, I feel like I could be like, oh yeah, definitely, I could maybe guess some of these because I feel like you just have to go like older movies, but like iconic lines that people just say all the time.
Yeah, I don't know that I would have gotten Bump In or Buckle In. It's gonna be a bumpy night.
Yeah, that one would have been hard.
Um, the I'm ready for my close up. I'm mad I didn't get because I know I've heard that.
Neither of us had seen this film. You're gonna get two fresh ratings. It's a whole goob squad on the dad chat this week. And Ben, you want to go first, or I'll go?
Yeah, I'll go. I'm trying to think what to. I didn't actually think about what numerical value to give this one. So I'll just talk about it, and then at the end, I'll convince myself of a number. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I'm sad that it's no longer available streaming. I hope HBO Max through Turner Classic kind of brings it back here before too long. Hope they bring back the rest of them too, because now that I've seen this one, I do want to go ahead and check out the rest of the Virgil Tibbs anthology. I don't know how many movies there were, so I don't want to say trilogy and there'd be like 5 of them. Sidney Poitier's very good. Rest in peace. I know we lost him earlier this year. And at the time, I knew, obviously, who he was as an actor, was obviously a very famous actor. Knew who he was through, the civil rights work he did. But I honestly don't think I had seen any of his movies before.
I don't think so.
I don't think I'd seen anything. I knew, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and I knew of the movies he'd done. I just hadn't actually seen them before. And seeing it now kind of makes me feel a little bit sadder. Like I said, I think this movie does a good job of showing racism and how it kind of just affects Tibbs's ability to do anything. I like the fact that even though he develops a better working relationship with the chief, it's not like, at the end of the movie there's a bow tie and hooray, we've solved the issue of race in America. It was a good mystery. I like the fact that it kind of kept leading you down into different suspects and things, that it wasn't like a pretty obvious who done it from the beginning. Yeah, I think I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I do, like I said, want to check out the rest of the series. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, watch it. It's worth it. It's very good.
Well, now I'm going to sound like a loser because I also gave it an 8 out of 10. Once again, that the freaking like closing shot was just pretty wild. Very blew me away because I was just like, oh yeah, end credits, whatever, and then I was like, oh shit, guys, like it's like closing on the movie on the credits. But I enjoyed this movie a lot. I think, like I said in the forefront, I wish there was slightly more detective work. I wish it was more of like a cold case, like we got to solve this, like figure it out type deal. But I mean, it's not necessarily what the movie's about. The movie is about between Tibbs and Gillespie's like relationship, and Tibbs dealing with like, obviously there's racism from the chief, there's racism from the mayor, and the other cops don't really give him much.
I mean, the one cop literally arrests him in the very beginning just for being at the train station.
Yeah,
So,
like I feel like that's a little bit
he must be
like,
the murderer.
I feel like it's a little bit of racism, but I also feel like Wood isn't the most intelligent person because he was just like,
Yeah,
go search
he
all
is.
these places, and then
He
there's
is
just
also
one
kind
person
of an
there,
idiot.
and he's like,
I like the guy who works the front desk who's just lazy. It's been like, how many times have I told him to fix this thing? I don't know. Get him out there to fix it. Okay. Didn't I tell you to fix the fence? Oh, no. You must have told my brother. He works the day shift. It's like, Jesus Christ.
But like, the townsfolk who chase Tibbs down and all that, like it's more about that than it is about the actual like case. I feel like, but it was an interesting take on this like crime drama with this Southern racism, the dynamic of the two leads. Shot well. I really enjoyed the music. Not so much like the really out there like blues.
He's a something owl on the prowl.
Yeah, it's an owl on the prowl.
The lead-in song though, literally
Yeah,
the song "In
the
the
one
Heat
by
of the
Ray
Night"
Charles.
that Quincy Jones did and Ray Charles sang. That song fucking hits, man. That's a banger.
Yeah, that one was really good. A foul owl on the prowl.
A foul owl. That was it. I knew it was a something owl on the prowl.
And then bow-legged Polly. What's the other one? Those ones I
Man,
could. Those ones are a little too far out there for me.
it's Southern blues, baby. Southern blues.
But I did really enjoy like the score and solid older movie. If you haven't seen it, I think you need to check it out. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram at Cocktails and Classics Pod. Check out the Drizzly and Cashco links below to make yourself your own Sidney Poitier. Check us out next week as we review another classic film. And check out In the Heat of the Night. Hopefully it'll be back on streaming soon, or you could go and probably rent it. It's probably a couple bucks on iTunes or Amazon. And as always, share this with your friends and family and watch responsibly.
Just two dads watching movies, drinking cocktails, other stuff.
Do 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 do.